members of the House, the FACE Act prohibits threats of force, obstruction, and property damage intended to interfere with reproductive health care services. Let me just go over that again. Prohibits threats of force, obstruction, and property damage intended to interfere with reproductive health care services. The Justice Department has said this act is not just about abortions, but applies as well to pro-life, I'm quoting, pro-life pregnancy counseling services and other pregnancy support facilities providing reproductive health care. So it applies across the board. Now here's the problem. On May 8, 2022, Mother's Day, activists targeted a pro-life nonprofit center in Madison, Wisconsin, setting it ablaze and vandalizing it with the words, "If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either." On June 3rd, 2022, left-wing anti-life activists targeted the Capitol Hill Crisis Pregnancy Center, throwing red paint on the door, eggs in the window, and spray painting the building with "Jane Says Revenge." On June 25th, 2022, in Longmont, Colorado, vandals graffitied and set fire to the Life Choices Free Pregnancy Center. And this has happened dozens and dozens and dozens of times all across the country. What's the Justice Department done? To my knowledge, no one. No one has been prosecuted under the FACE Act. Not one single person to my knowledge. But if you're a pro-life activist and you're praying outside an abortion clinic like Mark Houck, guess what happens to you? FBI kicks in your door, arrests you, puts you in handcuffs, and does it in front of your wife and 7 children. That's what happens. So we want this. Look, we don't want violence anywhere. As Mr. Cicilline said in 1 minute, we don't want any violence anywhere. But let's not have this double standard. Not to mention this. Think about what happened after the Dobbs decision was leaked. The leaked draft of that opinion. You had activists protesting at every not everyone, because only the conservative justices' names were doxed and information put out there. You had protests at their place in direct violation of the statute, 18 U.S.C. 1507. You're not supposed to be protesting, interfering when a decision is pending in front of a Supreme Court justice's home. Direct violation of the statute, and again, nothing happened. And that situation, as we all know, got real serious with the assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh. So this resolution is straightforward. What has happened literally now at hundreds of crisis pregnancy centers and churches around the country this past year is just flat out wrong. And this is a resolution that says we appreciate the good work that happens at crisis pregnancy centers where they take in women, where they help them and help that unborn child. Make sure that unborn child gets to experience the gift of life. The sanctity of life is what this is all about. And so I want to commend my colleague and friend, Mr. Johnson, from the great state of Louisiana for this resolution, and the people across the country who volunteer and work every day at these centers to help these ladies who are in a tough situation. And with that, I reserve the balance of our time.
The gentleman from Ohio reserved. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to this woefully incomplete resolution. I'd like to begin by saying that I condemn violence in all its forms, including the threats, vandalism, and property destruction described in H-Con Res. 3. I would also like to reiterate my condemnation of the attempted murder of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. That should go without saying. I am grateful that no one appears to have been physically injured in the vandalism incidents described in the resolution, and that law enforcement took Justice Kavanaugh's would-be assassin into custody before he could complete an act of violence. In a democracy, violence is never the answer to a political dispute, and it should be roundly condemned in all its forms. This resolution, however, is a transparent partisan ploy that is a woefully and unacceptably inadequate condemnation of violence. It comes in the context of extremist MAGA Republicans' effort to enact a total ban on abortion at both the state and federal levels. And in what appears to be a glaring omission to H-Con Res. 3, my Republican colleagues refused to condemn the long-documented history of violence, murder, and mayhem perpetrated by anti-abortion extremists against abortion providers and their patients. According to the National Abortion Federation, since 1977, anti-abortion extremists have been responsible for 11 murders, 42 bombings, 196 arsons, 491 assaults, and thousands of incidents of criminal activities directed at patients, providers, and volunteers. Sadly, these incidents have increased dramatically in recent years. In 2021, abortion providers faced a 600% increase in stalking incidents, a 450% increase in clinic blockades, a 163% increase in reports of hoax devices or suspicious packages, a 129% increase in invasions, and a 128% increase in assault and battery compared to previous years. In some cases, violence against abortion providers has had deadly consequences. For example, in November 2015, a gunman murdered 3 people and injured 9 others when he opened fire with an assault-style rifle at a Planned Parenthood health center in Colorado Springs. In January 2021, a gunman attacked the Planned Parenthood clinic in Knoxville, Tennessee, and later that year, the same clinic was burned to the ground by arsonists. Regardless of your position on abortion rights, it is important that we condemn all acts of violence, regardless of who is the ultimate target. I'm concerned that by refusing to condemn violence against providers, this resolution will inadvertently send a signal to anti-abortion extremists that violence against abortion providers is justified by the vandalism described in the resolution. If this inadequate resolution could potentially fan the flames of political discord, what purpose then does it serve? The only purpose I can infer is that it is intended to placate the extreme elements of the anti-abortion movement while this Republican majority figures out how to pass a total nationwide ban on abortion. Let me be clear. Democrats stand with the majority of the American public and will oppose such a radical position. H-Con-Res 3 is nothing more than a partisan political ploy designed to advance an extreme anti-abortion agenda and is not a serious effort to condemn political violence. Indeed, it may have the opposite effect on the American public because it purposely fails to condemn the thousands of threats, violent incidents, and attacks that abortion providers and patients have endured for decades at the hands of anti-abortion extremists. I urge my colleagues to vote no, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from New York reserved. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Madam Speaker, what purpose? Says it right in the title, expressing the sense of Congress condemning the recent attacks on pro-life facilities, groups, and churches. Over 100 churches and pro-life facilities have been attacked in the last 7 months. Over 100. That's all this resolution. I don't know. Republicans condemn violence every time it happens. We condemn it when it happens to abortion clinics. We condemn it when it happens to churches. We condemn it when it happens to pro-life centers. We condemn it when it happened in the summer of 2020 all over the country. We condemned it when it happened on January 6th. We condemn it every single time. This is just highlighting what has happened in the last 7 months with churches and pro-life centers around the country. That simple. I wouldn't know why this should be unanimous.